Everyone thought Kalita sold the sweetest milk, but no one knew where it really came from. What Rumo saw in Kalita's yard that night will leave you speechless. In the small village of Nairobi, there lived a woman named Kalita. She was admired by everyone, not only for her beauty but also because she was the village's trusted milk seller. Each morning she carried fresh milk to the market, and people would rush to buy it, believing it was the sweetest and purest milk they had ever tasted. Her fame spread across the village and many respected her hard work. Rumo had always been a man who watched carefully, and he began to notice something strange about Kalita. She never bought milk from cow owners, yet she always had more than enough to sell in the market. At first, he only whispered his suspicion, saying to a few neighbors, "Something is not right. Where does her milk come from?" But the people laughed at him and brushed his words aside. "You are only jealous," they told him. "Kalita works hard, and her nulo is the sweetest in the land. Stop speaking nonsense." Their dismissive words only made Rumo more determined to uncover the truth. He decided to spy on her, waiting for the right moment when no one else was around. One evening, he crept silently to her backyard, hiding behind the tall bushes near her fence. What he saw froze him in disbelief. Kalita sat on the ground with a large clay bowl before her. With her own hands, she pressed milk from her breasts, filling the bowl slowly. Rumo's mouth fell open. So this was the secret. The nulo that had won the love of the whole village was not cow's milk at all. It was her own. Shocked and burning with anger, he ran to the village square, shouting for people to follow him. "Come and see with your own eyes. Kalita has tricked us all." The crowd, curious and stirred by his words, hurried after him. They stormed into Kalita's yard, and there she was, still holding the clay bowl of milk. Gasps and cries of horror spread through the people. Mothers covered their children's eyes, men muttered angrily, and women shook their heads in disgust. "Betrayal!" someone shouted. "She fooled us!" The noise grew louder and louder until word even reached the chief of Nairobi. The chief himself came, walking tall with his guards, his face stern and unreadable. He raised his hand for silence, and the villagers bowed their heads in respect. His voice was deep and commanding as he looked straight at Kalita. "Is this true? Have you deceived your people with this milk?" The crowd waited, their anger and curiosity boiling together, as all eyes turned to Kalita. Kalita stood trembling before the elders and the angry villagers, her face streaked with tears, her body weak from the blow she had received. The crowd was restless, whispering and waiting for her words. She drew in a deep breath and began to speak, her voice shaking at first, but soon heavy with sorrow. She told them that many years ago she had been a happy wife to a hard-working farmer named Oben. They had dreams of raising their children together and building a strong home. But tragedy struck when Oben died suddenly in a farm accident, leaving her widowed and struggling. Not long after, their youngest son, little Saro, fell ill and passed away despite her desperate prayers and efforts to save him. From that moment, whispers spread across the village. People said she was cursed, that her family carried bad luck, and soon fear began to follow her wherever she went. Kalita's pain deepened when 4 more of her children died mysteriously, one after another, leaving her with only 2. The villagers began avoiding her. They no longer greeted her warmly or shared food at gatherings. Some even called her a witch in secret, blaming her for the tragedies she could not control. She tried to sell cooked food in the market to survive, but no one dared to buy from her hands. Her neighbors turned away as if her very presence carried misfortune. She was left alone with her last daughter, Lemni, clinging to hope that at least she could save this one child. But Lemni grew weaker day by day, hunger gnawing at her little body. One night, as Kalita rocked her daughter in her arms, the girl took her last breath and died against her chest. Kalita's cry of grief tore through the night, yet no one came to comfort her. In the depth of despair, with nothing left to live for, Kalita remembered whispers of an old healer who lived far away, on the edge of Tivoro village. Her name was Mother Yando, an elderly woman who stayed in a reed hut and was known for strange knowledge. With heavy steps, Kalita journeyed to Yando, pouring out her story of loss, loneliness, and hunger. The old woman listened silently, her wrinkled face unreadable, then spoke slowly. "If you want to live, if you want the people to accept you again, you must sell what no one else can. Sell your own milk. But it will not be enough on its own. Add this powder, harmless but full of charm, and they will never resist its taste." Kalita hesitated, ashamed of the thought, but despair had left her with no pride. With no children and no husband, survival was all she had. She agreed to the healer's advice. From that day, she pressed her breasts into clay bowls, mixed the milk with the mystical powder, and carried it to the market, calling it nulo, the local word for milk. At first, villagers frowned and turned away, suspicious of her product. But curiosity soon made one try, then another, and to their surprise, the milk was sweeter than any they had tasted. They bought more, and word spread quickly. Soon, everyone wanted Nolo, and Kalita's name once again was spoken with respect. People came to her house daily. Children ran to greet her, and she was welcomed at gatherings. Her once empty life became full again, and for the first time in many years she felt loved and needed. But in her success, Kalita forgot the one person who had made it possible. She never returned to Mother Yando to give thanks, never offered a gift or a word of gratitude. She moved forward with her new life, enjoying the wealth, respect, and belonging she had regained. As she finished telling her story, the villagers stood in silence. Their anger faded into murmurs of pity and unease, for they now understood the long road of pain and desperation that had led her to such a strange path. Kalita fell to her knees before the villagers, her eyes swollen with tears and her voice trembling as she begged them to listen. "I only did it to survive," she cried. "I lost my husband. I lost my children. I had nothing left. I was hungry. I was broken, and no one helped me. I never meant to deceive you. I only wanted to live." But her words fell on deaf ears. The villagers were too furious, too humiliated to show her mercy. They felt cheated, ashamed that they had been drinking her milk without knowing the truth. Their anger grew louder than her sorrow. Some shouted insults, others spat on the ground, and many refused to even look at her. The crowd, burning with rage, dragged her to the edge of the village. She stumbled and fell, her body weak and bleeding from the blow earlier. They pushed her forward, shouting that she was no longer welcome in Nairobi. "Leave and never return," they roared. "You are a curse among us." Kalita, heartbroken and powerless, limped into the forest, tears blurring her vision as the angry voices faded behind her. Her only thought was to find Mother Yando, the healer who had once given her hope. Perhaps Yando could guide her again. Perhaps she could offer comfort in her despair. With great pain, she journeyed through the thick woods, calling on every last bit of strength in her body. At last, she reached the reed hut at the edge of Tivoro village, but what she found broke her spirit even more. Yando was gone. Her daughter, standing at the doorway with sorrow in her eyes, told Kalita the news. The old healer had died not long ago. Hearing this, Kalita felt the last thread of her hope snap. With no family left, no healer to guide her, and no village to call her home, she turned and walked deeper into the forest. She was never seen in Nairobi again. Some believed she perished alone in the woods. Others whispered she joined spirits in the shadows. Back in the village, the market was never the same. The once busy stalls felt empty without the sweet taste of nulo. Children asked where Kalita had gone, but their mothers hushed them quickly. Some villagers began to feel guilty, wondering if their cruelty had driven her to such desperation. They remembered how they had turned their backs on her when she was grieving and starving, and shame troubled their hearts. Yet others remained bitter, insisting she was nothing but a liar who had fooled them all. Hit subscribe if you like this story.